So planning and preparing. So writing job applications is a time-consuming process, and often you do have to put a lot of time into them to get the best results here. And make sure that you are putting your efforts into the right kind of roles. So really understanding what are the roles that you can apply for, and sort of not applying for anything that's sort of, too much of a stretch outside of your skills and experience that you have. Because sometimes if you're sort of applying for everything that you see that you're interested in, it actually takes away from some time that you could be actually focusing more on the ones that you are in alignment with and you do really want. So also this actually increases the chances that you will actually like the role that you're doing. So taking that time to do that research and going, do I actually want to work for this company? Am I going to be doing a role that's meaningful to me? And actually dig into that first to work out, am I going to invest my time in this application or not? So I've just put a tip there too. So if you do some self-reflection activities, so sort of realizing what your interests are, skills, values, and goals are before you apply, that can often be really useful to have that knowledge going in. So you might have seen we have on our careers page, we have a list of self-assessments that you can do. So if you're sort of in the sort of the stage where you're applying for a role, but you're not sure if, your values are going to align with the company, or you're not sure of exactly what your specific skills are, you can actually start to do those exercises as a bit of a base for yourself. And then it can help with, talking yourself up in your applications as well, and really understanding yourself before you apply is often really helpful. Okay, so what makes you stand out? So the goal of the application is to get to the interview stage. But how are you going to get to the interview stage when you've got, you might be up against sometimes hundreds of people applying for the same role, perhaps the same kind of experience or the same qualification? What happens in that circumstance? So I guess what I would say is each of you will have your own individual strengths and individual differences as well. So what you want to think about is what makes you stand out perhaps more than something else. So for some people, it might be things like you've done a lot of extracurricular activities or volunteering in community, because often employers really like that, even if it's not, directly relevant to what you're going for. Also, other things, high academic marks will often make you stand out as well. Obviously, depending on, who else is applying again. Thinking about if you've done any relevant work experience, whether it be an internship or a paid work or, again, volunteering. And some other things that make people stand out are certain awards that they've got, or perhaps overseas trips that they've done. If you have multiple languages, things like that. So if you've got any of that going on as well, start to think about, not everybody else has that stuff. So starting to work out how you're going to put that in your application and how you're going to make that stand out to the employers. So it's really important to sort of confidently market yourself and skills and abilities. And a lot of students say to me, oh, I don't want to, sell myself. And it's often an awkward process when you feel like you have to do that. But what I say is, it doesn't necessarily have to be selling your skills, but just think of it as you're just telling the evidence of what you've done in the past. So this is what I've done. And as a result, these are the skills and abilities I've obtained. So if you think of it that way, really, you're just telling them the evidence. So you don't really have to say you believe you're the best candidate because of this, this, and this. You can just say what you've done, what skills you have, and how motivated you are. And actually, those things are really enough in your application. So you don't have to say, you don't have to point out that your skills align and you feel like you're the strongest candidate because of that. That, your experience will speak for itself anyway. And also, you don't want to draw on anything that is perhaps a negative thing either. So you want to write in really positive tone. So, for example, a lot of the time I see, although I don't have experience in this, I am, dedicated, da da da, things like that. You don't want to draw attention to the fact that you don't have experience, or perhaps you're not as confident. So instead, again, just focus on what you have done, what skills you have got, and in particular, if you've got experience in one industry, but you're trying to get into another industry, focus on what transferable skills you have from, perhaps that unrelated part-time job, and then how you've developed those skills. So focus on those instead of drawing attention to no experience or little experiences. As we've said, researching the needs of the employers as well. So analysing that job description quite well, and then matching the evidence of what you've done. So having a look at what you've done in your resume versus what they're asking for. And it needs to be a match, but it doesn't have to be a perfect match. So it doesn't have to be 100%. So when you're looking at, the dot points of what they're asking for or their selection criteria, you don't have to have absolutely everything, because that is their sort of ideal dream candidate that often they won't get. So just keep that in mind too. And if you do sort of feel like you've got, 60, 70, 80% of what they're asking for, as long as there's no sort of clear deal breakers with, they're asking for 5 years of experience when you've only got one. If there's sort of a close year of experience, or they're asking for something and it says desirable, not essential, then it's definitely still worth applying for that job. Because again, we don't know who else is applying, and other people might actually have less experience, or you might show that you have better motivation, or you've done the extra research and you've actually called the place. So even if sometimes you don't have as much experience, you might actually end up standing out more than somebody that does have experience, because you have gone the extra mile. If that makes sense. You have been proactive, you have called them, introduced yourself, things like that. So that's actually how you stand out a lot of the time, and how you can sort of override if they're asking for more experience than what you have.